Last Epoch. It's the talk of the town. You hear Asmongold talking about it, you see Zizzerin reacting to videos about it, you see Riker talking about it as well, and a ton of smaller creators all giving their 2 cents on the brand new trading system that 11th Hour Games has released to the public in anticipation of that 1.0 launch, which is on February 21st, 2024. Well, for the past few months, I have been playing a little bit of Last Epoch, and the past few days, I've been able to really sink my teeth into this next ARPG that's releasing on the market before Path of Exile 2 comes out and before that big first Diablo 4 expansion comes. So there's a lot of hype building up to this. 11th Hour Games is, if you don't know, another startup studio, another indie studio, just like Grinding Gear Games once was. And they got together on Reddit of all places and said, hey, we're not pleased with the current market of ARPGs. We think we can do it better. Let's get together and actually build something. They made it happen. This is the result of an initial Reddit thread that started, and they've done quite the job here. Now, I'm going to give my brief thoughts on the game as its launch approaches. But before we dive deeper into it in this video, let me just say I will be playing Last Epoch. It obviously is a labor of love. It is a deep game with dedicated developers, and this is them only getting started. They've been working on this engine, this game, for numerous years now, and they're about to kick off their cycle of leagues, which, oopsie, is actually called cycles. So this is going to be an exciting year in general for Last Epoch and for ARPGs. If you haven't tried Last Epoch already, I highly recommend it. You can get it on Steam. I think it's $30, $35. It is well worth your money, and you'll be able to spend quite a bit of time theory crafting and building a character on your own, which is something awesome about Last Epoch. So where am I in Last Epoch? I have just finished the campaign. So yes, these are my first impressions. I didn't just do the first chapter like some other first impressions YouTubers out there. I actually did the entire campaign. I swapped around my build multiple times. I hit my head against a particular boss in the campaign too, and I surmounted it. So everyone, just a heads up, I am going to front load the bad here, okay? I've already recommended the game. I do think you should play it, but there's a lot of jank here that I'd like to talk about. And the first thing is the campaign. Oh my goodness, are we spoiled with Path of Exile 1, or at least in my general opinion, everybody, because Last Epoch's campaign is messy. It's incredibly convoluted. There are numerous side quests. It's obviously a time travel story. I won't give too many spoilers there for those who care about it, but you're moving forward in time and backward in time and then back to this different place at a different point in time, and you're getting quests and they're racking up, and there's so many different plot threads and NPCs that you're tracking up. And for people who care about that sort of thing like I do, and I'm trying to read all the dialogue, I'm trying to collect the quests and finish them out, but I'm getting thrown around in all these various timelines because of the main story. It's just confusing, and it was very unfortunate in my opinion. I really didn't enjoy the story as I was going through it. I really didn't feel like I could actually get a grasp on all the quests that I had, and now I'm just going through them at the end of the campaign and knocking them out one by one. I had one quest that was from level 5 that gave me a passive point, some others that are just XP and gold, and I didn't realize you could go through them and see all the rewards until quite later on in the campaign itself. So yes, the campaign was complex, convoluted, and I felt like it was just bloated in general. Too many quests. Trim down the number of quests and it would be much better. Less is more in that sense, and I think Path of Exile 1 does it right there. There are very few quests, and the quests that are there are usually meaningful. There are very rare instances where you just get rare items as rewards. Many of the quests you get valuable passive skill points or respec points. Chunk of jank number 2 that I would like to touch on is just the general usability of the game, and the one that I'm going to focus on here is transitioning to new areas, okay? So in Last Epoch, when you approach a transition area, a waypoint to a new zone, you teleport into that next zone, or you can click on it, or you can just walk through it. I've gone back and forth between zones before because I guess I moved forward or backward just a bit too much, and sometimes your character is facing backward toward the area from whence you came. It's just some jankiness there that I hope will be fixed on launch that I encountered countless times, and I think if players see that in a game that they've bought, they're gonna be like, what is going on here? This doesn't make sense. This is not polished. I hope that's polished in time for the launch. And another point on that front too, and it ties in with the first point, just the notification system, or the fact that when you finish a quest, there's no real marker, there's no real way to track it easily. The quests on your right-hand side can't be sorted, so often it's just the quest that you received earliest in the campaign that's at the top, and then the quest that you received after that stack under and under and under, so that means the latest quest, usually the main story quest that you have, doesn't appear on the right-hand side unless you finish out all those other quests. So you constantly have to go back to the main map to check where the main quest is supposed to take you, and oof, it's just janky. And I think that is the word that I would use to describe my experience with Last Epoch thus far, just going through the campaign. It is janky. My final gripe, everyone, and then we're getting into the good, are the servers. I was constantly disconnected from Last Epoch servers, and I know that the launch is coming up. I hope they are prepared for a surge of players, okay? It's going to be the downtime between Path of Exile 1 seasons. The new Diablo 4 season will be in full swing, so all of its population will likely be gone. The Diablo 3 season started just last week, so that game's not going to be populated at all. There's no other huge ARPGs, and we know that Asmongold is going to be playing it. Zizzarin's probably going to play, Riker. All the big names, those huge people like Darth Microtransaction that skyrocketed in fame and subscribers and viewers, will be playing Last Epoch upon its launch on February 21st. They need to expect all those people coming, and with them, they're bringing a massive number of players. So I hope that 11th hour games are ready for this surge. Otherwise, launch day is going to be disastrous. Okay, those are all the cons as I see them. Let's get to the pros of Last Epoch. First, let's just talk about this skill system. I deeply enjoy this skill system itself, and I don't enjoy one part, and some people are going to be mad about it. The idea of picking a skill and then branching out from that skill in myriad paths is awesome, and I love it. They really have to get creative with each individual skill that they make. Now, I started as a Sentinel, and I became a Void Knight, and I'm going Warpath, and I'm converting that into Void damage, and then I have a Racing Strike, which I'm using to do massive AoE in huge packs and pop them, and then I have Void Cleave, which I transitioned into my movement skill, so I'm Void Cleaving around the map while I'm Racing Striking right after, and then when I don't have either of those up, I'm just using Warpath and spinning to win on my Sentinel. And all those skills are highly customized to the playstyle that I would like to do with the Sentinel. Now, I know that a lot of other people probably have different playstyles, and my build is probably not at all optimal or even viable in endgame, but I'm having fun, and it's giving me a little bit of a glimpse, I think, into what we're going to be getting with Path of Exile 2, because I am juggling between a few different skills. Although I'm really doing it in the same order a lot of the time right now, I'm going from pack to pack. I'm Void Cleaving, a Racing Strike, and then Warpath to clean everything up, right? I hope that in the end game of Last Epoch, maybe there's a little bit more diversity, a reason to use some defensive skills, or if I'm just going to completely optimize away defenses in favor for offensive skills. I know that's something that is tricky to juggle, and that's what Path of Exile 2 is attempting to address. We'll see if they're actually able to do it. It's a tricky one. The passive skill system, not the biggest fan of it. I mean, it's okay, I guess, but I do like the tree better than what we get in Last Epoch, where you're just slowly progressing one bar at a time. I prefer Path of Exile's method, and I prefer what they do with the skill system here. But it's simplistic. It's mixing between the customization of skills and the basic progression of passes. Totally fine. I understand why they're doing it. Oh, and the one thing that I don't like is the respecking. Nothing feels permanent. I can just easily reset everything. I know people absolutely love it. When you can just press the button and change your character entirely, really, I don't feel attached to said character. I've swapped around quite a few times, and honestly, it sounds funny. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. I didn't feel any weight to my decisions. I felt like, okay, well, if this is terrible, I can just swap back and it doesn't really matter, or I can swap to this and it doesn't really matter. I enjoy the wait. Brief touch on itemization as well. I haven't delved too deeply into it yet. As I said, I've just finished the campaign, but the itemization seems decent. A lot of stuff drops on the ground, and I know they have a great custom loot filter that you can make yourself, and I haven't explored that at all yet, but there's a lot of crafting material that drops on the ground, and I don't like how small the basic text is. I hope you can make it larger, because trying to click on those little bits of text got rather annoying after a bit. But the items themselves, they do make sense. Everything was quite intuitive, and I even crafted some, and that made total sense too. It doesn't seem like it's PoE where it's very random and you can't really craft in the early game during the campaign at all, besides for the bench craft. In Last Epoch, I actually made a few substantial upgrades while I was moving through the campaign, particularly on my weapon, getting a lot more void damage on my two-hander. Pretty cool. Now, before we get into the mess of Last Epoch, let me just do one more shout out. Shout out to the developers of Last Epoch, because I have been paying quite close attention to their YouTube streams, to their Reddit, and they are very communicative, especially leading into the launch of this. And I did a little bit of looking back on their history, and they've done a great job. So shout out to them. They obviously care quite a bit about this game, and I am pretty sure they're going to make it succeed. Okay, so here is a long list of the mess on Last Epoch so far. Then this is just after the campaign. I haven't gone into endgame yet. The bosses. The boss fights were quite lackluster for the most part. There was one boss, a god of the seas, that was actually kind of difficult. It was the only difficult boss in the campaign, and it was pretty fun. I had to bang my head against the wall for a little bit. I had to make some gear upgrades. I had to look at my resistances for the first time, and I had to change around my skills a little bit, try a new strategy. And after about 20 minutes of trying new things, I was able to beat him. He has a phase that's quite similar to the Searing Exarch's ball phase, but with waves. And that was pretty fun, and the waves were one-shotting me for a bit there, but I learned the patterns and I got him down. It was a fun fight, but I think it was the only real engaging fight. Most of the boss fights besides him weren't great, really. Now, Endgame probably has many more boss fights, but I'm coming from Path of Exile, and I do think the boss fights in the campaign of PoE were superior. Even in Diablo 4, I think most of them were actually pretty similar. I would say that Lilith, the final Lilith fight, does definitely beat out everything in Last Epoch that I've encountered thus far, although the Sea God is pretty close. I did enjoy him. The graphics are the next part that are a little meh for me. It's very cartoony, very bouncy, which is a different artistic style compared to something like PoE or even Diablo, and I'm not quite used to it, but I did get used to it. And you know, as long as nothing's lagging on screen, which I do get some FPS drops surprisingly in Last Epoch, everything looks and flows together pretty well. And I did see that there were some significant graphical engine improvements coming with 1.0. The final meh are the in-game resources. Now, there are in-game resources, okay? So I don't want to crap talk them here, but I thought that many of them were kind of incomplete, almost half written, right? They're there, but they don't fully explain a mechanic, or they leave bits and pieces out that I get from the community, which, another shout out, everyone in Last Epoch in the global chat always answers my questions. Thank you so much, because I am a dummy and I need help learning things, and everyone always was answering my questions, and that was phenomenal. So shout out to the Last Epoch community, already doing better than some other communities out there. All right, so leading up to Last Epoch's first cycle and launch of 1.0 on February 21st, 2024, I am going to be exploring the endgame, looking at the Monolith of Fate. I think there's an endless gladiatorial pit as well. There might be some dungeons too. Lots to explore here, and I know that more is coming with 1.0, so I want to be well prepared, and I do want to try to play this game upon the launch and see what everybody else out there thinks about it. Lots of people told me in my comments for many months to try out Last Epoch. Finally broken through the campaign. I'm going to get through endgame in these next few days that I have to myself, and I'm going to let everybody here know what's going on. I hope you enjoyed my first impressions of Last Epoch. It's just a collection of my thoughts. If you want to hear more about Last Epoch or anything Path of Exile 1, Path of Exile 2, or D4 Hate and related, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the sub notification bell. Please do that. Very few people have the sub bell on. I'm quite surprised. Apparently, I'm below average. But if you like my stuff, please turn it on. Anyways, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and Tala Moana, Exile.